All right, that's enough of that. Okay. Who are we missing? George and Denny.
Hey, Patsy, can you hear us?
No, we can't hear you.
Oh, come over.
There we go. There's John.
Hello.
Okay.
Oh, I heard him there.
I know I need someone to talk.
Jeff, can you hear me?
No.
Maybe we should sign off and sign back in.
Well.
Is that any better, guy?
Yep, we got you. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of council for Mayfield Village, Ohio. It is Monday, April 5th, 2021, 7 p.m. This special meeting of council was duly noticed and is being held in accordance with Ohio Revised Code section 121.22, specific to recent amendments made in light due to the current COVID-19 declared emergency, House Bill 197, amended by House Bill 404. Under the orders of Governor DeWine and the Director of Health of Ohio, and pursuant to Ordinance 2020-08, adopted March 16th, 2020, Council is meeting remotely via electronic means. Mayfield Village is conducting these proceedings in compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurasek?
Here.
Mr. Marquardt?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Mrs. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Scheidt?
Here.
Mayor Bodnar?
Here.
Mr. Nguyen?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Marquardt?
Here.
Mr. Morelli?
Here.
Chief Matthias?
Here.
Mr. Metzang?
Here.
All other department heads are viewing this meeting virtually.
Thank you, Mrs. Betza. Please remain seated while I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to the open portion. The public was encouraged to view this meeting agenda and offer any comments or questions limited only to the agenda items prior to this meeting to be read into the record and addressed at the meeting. Comments and questions were accepted until 6 p.m. this evening by sending an email or to our Clerk of Council, Mary Betza. Mrs. Betza, have you received any comments?
No, Council President, I have not.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Betza. I will move along to the agenda item then. Resolution number 2021-13 entitled,
An emergency resolution authorizing the mayor and president of council to enter into the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement with GLHG Mayfield Holdings LLC and GLHG Restaurant LLC.
Motion to pass, please.
Second.
discussion. Mrs. Betson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheib.
Yes. Since this was the only item, I'll enter a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved, please.
Second.
Mrs. Betson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
yes.
Mr. Scheib.
Yes. The meeting is adjourned. It is 7:03 p.m. Welcome to the April 5th, 2021 Council Caucus meeting for Mayfield Village, Ohio. It is 7:04 p.m. This meeting has been duly noticed and will be held in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22, specific to recent amendments made in light of the current COVID-19 declared emergency, House Bill 197, amended by House Bill 404. Under the orders of Governor DeWine and the Director of Health of Ohio, and pursuant to Ordinance 2020-08 adopted March 16th, 2020, Council will be meeting remotely via electronic means. No one will be in council chambers or be able to access that space during the meeting. The public is invited to view the meeting live and can access the meeting through a link posted on the Mayfield Village website at www.mayfieldvillage.com. Mayfield Village will conduct these proceedings in compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. First up is the mayor's report.
Thank you, Council President. First, I'd like to say that I hope everyone who celebrates Easter or Passover had the opportunity to celebrate those holidays. And I hope that everybody's been able to get their vaccines so we have an expanded opportunity to be together with our friends and our family as these holidays come and as the summer opportunities come up. I have a couple of announcements tonight. First, I know that this is not the freshest news, but we've not had a public meeting since then. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Scott Sipos as our new service director. Scott's been with our service department for a very long time, and he's currently a foreman in the service department. Ron, Wynn, Diane Molgenmuth, and I interviewed 10 different candidates. We had a very, very talented field of candidates that we talked with, and we all agreed that Scott was outstanding in that field of candidates. He also came very highly recommended. So we are very much looking forward to working with Scott. His promotion date is actually today. He's got a lot to learn and some big shoes to fill, so we wanted him to have some overlap between when he starts and when Mr. Metzig is retiring. We're looking forward to working with Scott. He will actually be sworn in on our next council meeting on April 19th. And also at that time, we're going to have to bid a sad and fond farewell to our retiring director, Doug Metzig, and we'll be wishing Doug great health and happiness and fun on his new adventures in retirement. So that was my first announcement. Also wanted to note that I am issuing a letter of commendation to Lieutenant Brothers in our fire department. Late in March, Lieutenant Brothers was working out at the Crooked River CrossFit facility on Beta Drive. At that time, he was alerted by a staff member there that there was another patron who was experiencing cardiac arrest. Lieutenant Brothers immediately assessed the situation and he responded by delivering life-saving measures. By the time help arrived from 911, the patient had been defibrillated and was alert and speaking. So this was just a wonderful culmination of all of the efforts by our fire department. The fire department has a CPR training program that is offered free to our local businesses. And I know Lieutenant Brothers personally trains business personnel. Also, keep in mind, we have a local ordinance that requires the installation of an AED. So the gym was equipped with one and was ready to go on that. And also we had trained employees at Crooked River. So they were able to recognize a medical emergency early on and get the help that was needed. So I know all of Mayfield Village takes comfort and pride in the skill of our first responders. As I said, I will be issuing a letter to Lieutenant Brothers, and a copy of that will go in his personnel file. And finally, kudos and thanks to our rec director, Shane McAvenue, and our assistant rec directors, Danielle and Sean. And also a lot of thanks to our rec volunteers for putting on a wonderful Easter program, made a lot of families and kids happy here in Mayfield Village. So thank you for all of your efforts. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bodnar. I'd just like to echo the mayor's comments for activities and Parks and Rec Department put on for families last weekend. And also thank you to Lieutenant Brothers, as you mentioned as well, for his quick response. Mr. Metzong, congratulations on your retirement. I know you have a couple more weeks. I'm sure you'll be enjoying your additional time that you can play golfing and spending time with your family. And congratulations to Scott Cyphus. We look forward to working with you and having a strong relationship with you as well, as we already have had. I also want to say happy birthday to Shane McAvenue. His birthday is April 23rd. And then also our next regular meeting of council is on Monday, April 19th at 7 o'clock. That meeting will also be held virtually, but hopefully later on this year, we can start meeting in person again. That's all that I had. Moving along to administration. First up, I believe, is Mr. John Marquardt.
Thank you, Mr. President. You all should have received a memo from me in your packets, just making you aware of this item in advance of the 19th regular meeting. We need to review the final income tax incentive agreement. This one is with Mars Electric. And as you can see in the memo, they are in their just wrapping up their 4th out of a 5-year agreement with the village. Their minimum income tax requirement is $82,889. I'm happy to report that despite the pandemic, they generated $169,449 this year. And actually, that's actually within just a handful of dollars from the previous year. So it's a good sign that they were able to hold their own during the pandemic. So a payment will be required this year of $50,834.77. And again, we will need to convene the MCIC on the 19th to formally review this agreement. And then council will need to act on it later that night. That concludes my report. I'm happy to field any questions.
If there's no questions, we'll move along. Thank you, Mr. Marquardt.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up is Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, Council, you should have received a memo as well as a copy of the current policy, the current vehicle policy. You know, we decided that it made sense to update that policy to include a couple things. One was the one was to address the use of cell phones while driving, and then the other was to put in a detail list of responsibilities of both the employees and the department heads in the event of an accident. When an employee is operating a village vehicle. All those changes were highlighted in the current policy for your convenience, and that'll be on the agenda for passage on the 19th.
Any questions from Mr. Nguyen? Okay, thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Moving along, building department. First up is Mayor Bodnar.
Yes, thanks, Council President. You have in your packets the mutual assistance agreement with the city of Lyndhurst. And what that is pretty much a standard issue mutual assistance agreement, and it's for the building department services. The way this works is, well, we already have an agreement in place with Highland Heights, and the city of Lyndhurst was putting their agreement together with Highland Heights, and they contacted me and said, would you like to have one also between Mayfield Village and Lyndhurst? So this works pretty much the same way as the one with Highland Heights does. It gives us the opportunity to just broaden our scope a little bit. Mr. Morelli has reviewed it. So what happens is, in the event that Mr. Morelli, say, is on vacation or has inspections or something of that nature that he cannot get to, then not only could we call Highland Heights and say, hey, can you help us out? But we would also have the availability of calling Lyndhurst and seeing if they could help us out. And they would have the same thing with respect to us. They could call us, or they could call Highland Heights and say, can you help me out in any given situation? There's no liability if we fail to respond to a request for assistance on anybody's part. So if we can't do something to help out Lyndhurst, we can just say no, and they can say no to us if they're not available to help us out. So the agreement's in your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
We have that much building going on in Mayfield Village that we would need assistance from two different cities?
We don't have a lot going on. I think Mr. Morley could answer that better than me, but I mean, there can be a certain, and we don't have to use this agreement. It just gives us the availability of having someone else. So if we called over to Highland Heights, we needed to do something and they weren't able to do it, we would have at least the availability to be able to ask Lyndhurst. But Mr. Morley, do you want to answer that also?
Yeah, well, as you know, I just was on vacation for 2 weeks, and then I had to stay in for a week after that because I was out of the country. And Highland Heights took care of all the inspections over at the Montebello while I was away. So that's pretty much how it works. If somebody goes out on sick leave or is on a vacation, and a home builder or a contractor needs inspection, they can't wait a week or 2 weeks to close up something, then one of us would go over there, take care of that, submit a simple report to their city hall, and everybody's on time then.
So it wouldn't matter when it would be, either Highland Heights or Mayfield or Lyndhurst would step in and help you?
Yeah, as the mayor said, Highland Heights and Mayfield Village have had an agreement for a couple of years now, and I've been able to help them out. They've been able to help me out. It's not on a regular basis. It's like on an emergency almost, when somebody is not available or inspection can't wait 1 or 2 days. Like I said, sometimes there's trenches open and the inspector is called in sick that day, and so we'll get a call, can you run out and look at this excavation real quick so they can backfill it, and it's not unsafe, and so we'll run out and take care of that for them. So we're just what's required in almost an emergency situation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, definitely it would be nice to have a backup to the backup, if ever
Right.
needed.
Yeah. More people in the mix.
Right, for sure. Are there any other questions, Mayor Bodnar or Mr. Morelli? Since there's no other questions, we'll move along. Mr. Morelli, I believe you're up for the next topic.
Yes, the amendments to the building and fire codes. This is a housekeeping issue. The Ohio Basic Building Code, which is the state of Ohio code, hasn't been called the Basic Building Code for probably 20 years. So Gino and I were going through some of the ordinances, and mostly in the fire department ordinances, that they still refer to the Ohio Basic Building Code. So we simply wanted to get up to date so that it's here again, a house cleaning of a language so that we refer to the proper code, Ohio Building Code versus Basic Building Code. And also, while we were at it, we took some of the references out of our Ohio Basic Building Code ordinances that are in conflict with our local codes and took the section numbers out, because the building code gets revamped every 3 years and section numbers change. So we decided not to refer to those section numbers in the Ohio Building Code, because we're probably going to have to come right back in a couple of years and say, now we have to change that number. So we just deleted those numbers, referred to the book as a whole when need be.
Makes sense. Any questions for Mr. Morelli? If there's no questions, we'll move along. Thank you, Mr. Morelli.
Well,
next is the police department, Chief Matthias.
Thank you, Council President. The only thing we have is the span agreement. It's the agreement was originally written in 1972, and it's what allows us to work with the other governments to share our resources. That includes providing for our SWAT team, bomb squad, all the other special units. And so there's really no changes to the agreement. It was just kind of rewritten and updated from the original 1972 agreement. It doesn't change any of the way we do business or any current practice that we have. So again, it's just a updated order. So if there's any questions about it, just let me know.
Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move along. Thank you, Chief Matthias. Next up, Law Department, Ms. Weber.
Well, we do not, the law department does not have a report this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Weber. Next, we have our soon-to-be retiree for the Service Department, Mr. Metzon.
One last step out the door.
Right.
This is for next year's salt purchases. It's our yearly resolution that allows us to purchase through the State of Ohio Department of Transportation's cooperative purchasing for salt. We are asking for 1,800 tons this year. This will obligate us to purchase that salt. Once we get into the mix, then we have to purchase it no matter what the number comes back at. But we're looking again, like I said, for 1,800 tons. We base this typically on a typical winter, 2,500 tons a winter, but we didn't use nearly as much as last year. So we're probably sitting on about 12 to 1,300 tons in the bin right now. So 1,800 is a pretty safe number, I believe, for next year. I hope I won't be here to see it, but I hope for Scotty's sake, it's the right amount. That's all I have.
Any salt questions for Mr. Metzung?
If we run out, can we call you?
My number will be unlisted.
I have a feeling Scott will call you anyway. No other questions. We'll move along. Thank you, Mr. Metzung. Are there any other matters that become before council tonight? Since there's no other matters, the meeting is adjourned. It is 7:21 p.m.